the breakout stars,
early on in day 3 of the draft, the Pirates called,
the wild moments, and the prospects you need to know about.
A sub-3 ERA in both single and double A.
This is Minor League Weekly, your inside look at the future of the game. And welcome to yet another episode of Minor League Weekly on the Minor League Minute YouTube channel in a live capacity. You can always listen to us back on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Quiet week. Just kidding. Cory Sparks, Jacob Smedley here with you. We're going to go over our headlines. It's all Chicago Cubs, from the Bregman swing, Jed Hoyer discovering what deferred payments are, to the Edward Cabrera trade with Owen Caissie headlining. Jacob, you missed 1 week, and everything happened, so we're good to have you back.
Yeah, glad to be back. You can just hear the excitement in Cory's voice right there, the happiness of a Chicago Cubs fan right there. So can't wait to get into it. Can't wait to talk some NL Central, your bread and butter. Can't wait to get into it this week.
Yeah, how about the Cubs doing that, right? It's our NL Central farm features, and they just decide, yeah, we'll just make not one but two splashes over the course of the last handful of days. Don't have too much on the Bregman thing. It's just they went out and signed him. There's not a whole lot of minor league ties there other than recently graduated top prospect Matt Shaw. We'll see what goes on there. But we're really going to lock in and hone in on Edward Cabrera. On the move, the Marlins get in return former number 1 prospect for the Cubs, Owen Caissie. He is now relocated as the number 3 prospect in Miami's system now. Christian Hernandez, number 12 in Miami's system, an infield prospect, and Edgardo De Leon, another infield prospect. He's outside looking in to the top 30 for the Miami Marlins pipeline. The Marlins get some of the Cubs' Sunday best, literally their best prospect in Owen Caissie, who debuted in the latter stages of the 2025 season, hung around for the mini playoff run where they took out the Padres and then lost to the Brewers in 5. Caissie coming up with Moises Ballesteros. More on him to come for the Cubs farm feature. But in terms of why the Marlins do something like this, what needs did they address? Jacob, to kick us off, despite the fact that we all found out who Kyle Stowers was stealing the show this past season, he impressed the baseball world by storming out and having a breakout campaign. This team was in the wild card race and had a chance to punch in. Why didn't they? You could point at the fact they were 20th in slugging, or 16th in runs scored, or 17th in OPS, or 27th in home runs. They needed power. They needed guys with some thump in their bat. Owen Caissie supplies that. That is in his prospect profile. He's also a lefty, so Clayton McCullough can toy around with strategy a little bit there. But in terms of the Marlins side of it, before we get to what Edward Cabrera provides for a Cubs team that was craving rotational depth, I think the Marlins went out and said, look, we need more offensive output. We're going to get that if we bet on this Canadian and Owen Caissie.
Yeah, I really like this for the Marlins, kind of getting the call. I know there was initial conversations when the news first broke. I was wondering if they want to get a younger arm in there. I know, just talking behind the scenes a little bit about Jackson Wiggins for the Cubs, if that's someone that the Marlins were looking at. But again, they trust their pitching development. They trust. We talked about a few weeks ago about doing the spotlight, the minor league spotlight with the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp with their staff that they have. So they wanted to hone in on bats. And yeah, those stats don't lie, Cory, what you brought up. I really like this move for the Marlins, kind of building around that potential in the corners and looking at some of the great Marlins teams, of recent memory with Yelich, with Stanton, Ozuna. Now it's Stowers, Caissie, and Marcy moving forward, solidifying from left to right to center, each of them bringing different skill sets of speed with power from the left side, and really kind of reinvigorating this youth movement for Chicago. So yeah, I really like it. And Sam, shout out Sam did a great job breaking down the trade and breaking down, what these prospects bring to the table for the Marlins, especially Hernandez and De Leon. I think Hernandez is a player, can be used at second, short, and third. Miami has been really stacking those guys. Oliver Arquette, who Sam brought up, up in his farm feature earlier in December. Andrew Salas, Arquette, Starling Kaba as well, who they acquired from the Phillies last offseason. So, I mean, just going back to talked about it with the Brewers as well, with their stacking of infielders. You get these guys in shortstop, second base. You can do a lot of different things, with those guys up the middle. So they're building strengths in their minor league system with these other two guys. Well, Caissie's going to be really at the opening day roster, I think, for day one. You have these other two that are building on a strength in the minor league system.
Yeah, awesome point, and great to give credit to Sam Wright. That is all the more reason, by the way, if you're listening, finding us for maybe one of the first times to follow us. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, and of course, YouTube, where you may or may not be listening to or watching this podcast episode right now. News breaks like that, one of us is going to jump on it. My head was spinning, I had some stuff going on, and Sam just jumps right in. Yep, we got you had a graphic up, and then Sam jumps in, makes a short form on it. So if you're ever, seeing those trades where the other end of it, people are going to talk about Edward Cabrera. We'll get to that in a moment. What is this prospect haul? Is this guy really good? Is the Cubs system really good right now? That's what we're here for. That's the stuff that we do our homework on. It's our bread and butter. And so let's get to that before we get to what could be next for the Fish. Jacob, who won this trade?
Oh, man. I'd say in the short term, the Chicago Cubs. I know, again, you do a lot of short term, long term. I think the long term is a question mark, depending on, looking 2 years, 3 years, how Caissie develops, how Edward Cabrera's contract goes with arbitration, with, how the Cubs are looking financially down the line. But, I think Edward Cabrera is kind of really getting into his prime last season, really started to put it together and, stabilized in a Marlins staff that was up and down with injuries, with guys going in and out. So I think the winner's the Chicago Cubs. You get another piece in that rotation, a really lefty-heavy rotation with Imanaga, with Steele. I know Cade Horton really came on as a rookie, kind of balance out Matthew Boyd, another lefty that they have in there. So you get a strong righty that has power stuff, power fastball, the breaking stuff. That slider, I think, is great, especially inside to lefties, an equalizing pitch. So, yeah, I really like it for the Cubs going all in that NL Central, in that NL that just gets stronger and stronger every year. They're keeping up, and as Cory likes to say, spending the big market money. So I'd say the Cubs win this trade.
Yeah, I think Jed Hoyer really kind of snapping out of some trends that we've seen in the past. He's been filling that right fielder spot in with Cody Bellinger. And then, of course, this last season with Kyle Tucker, kind of platooning and then just deciding we're going to go all in on a guy for a year. We haven't really seen that long-term commitment. Then they go and do that with Bregman. With the Cabrera trade, I'm going to say this benefits both sides. Short-term, I agree with the Cubs. I think there is a high ceiling for the Marlins to kind of even out the score and then over the years pull away if Caissie just ends up being their future outfielder, their future right fielder, if he's playing in his traditional spot. And for a team that truly does need that. Both teams went out and got what they needed. It wasn't like the Cubs said, hey, take my prospects, you guys are rebuilding, you're below 80 wins, so be it. No, Caissie's going to supply them with power almost instantly. Christian Hernandez and Edgardo De Leon, they're going to give them sure-handed gloves, but also some more offensive output. In this day, right now, assuming that Edward Cabrera can be around where he was last year, 137 innings, career high, mid-3 ERA. I love him, and I do think the Cubs can win it by a little bit. If he is anything less than average and Caissie is everything he's supposed to be, Hernandez and De Leon are just cherries on top, right? That could be about as straight up as it gets, and anything else that happens with that prospect haul just helps push the Marlins ahead. Now, I will say, the more and more I learn about Edward Cabrera, a little scary with some of the injuries early on, the more I like him. Jacob, he's got a 5-pitch mix. The four-seam fastball, that's over 97 miles an hour on the way in. I just found this last night. That's his 5th most used pitch. His other 4, his breaking stuff, all that's in front of it. And it's like, if you go into his baseball savant, this isn't exactly it, but it's like, this pitch is used 26% of the time. This one's 25. This one's 24. You don't know what you're going to get. I mean, he truly, the sinker, the changeup, the fastball, they all have similar shapes. They all come in at over 94 miles an hour. And by the time you figure out what it is, it's too late. It's by you. You rolled over on it. You popped it up. You whiffed on it. Or he breaks you down in the other direction with the curveball that got a lot of swings and misses and really generated some confusion. So he's got all the tools. He's got that lethal fastball that you need in 2026. He's got that sinker, his changeup, what he uses more than any other pitch. Find me another pitcher in baseball right now who uses their pitch or the changeup as often and as effectively as Edward Cabrera. So I really do want to get excited, but I also know, what did he do in 2025 for the first time in 5 tries? Eclipse 100 innings. You need your starter to eclipse 100 innings very routinely, and the fact that there is a possibility out there that that's a blip on the radar, that scares me. I hope it's more of what you said, especially as a Cubs fan, his ascension, the beginning of a 4, 5, 6-year prime where he's consistently in that 130 to 180 innings sweet spot. Anywhere in there, I'm good, because the Cubs have struggled with injuries in their rotation already. Justin Steele to be one. Shoto was battling this year. The last thing you need is to ship off some prospects, and then the big shiny piece you got, boom, he goes down too. So if he's healthy, I'm the happiest man in the world, because I think he's got all the tools that the Cubs need and that he needs to make life hard for opposing hitters. What could be next for the Fish? We just did the farm feature on them not too long ago. Jacob, you look at the 2026 picture, maybe the next couple of years. Who are the next guys up now that Cabrera's up and out?
Yeah, I'll get in it. Something I just thought of. We're talking about the ascension of Edward Cabrera. You're talking about the pitch mix. Again, Phillies fan right here, thinking about Zach Wheeler with the Mets to the Phillies. I know, again, it was a free agent signing, but there was the injury questions, the concerns about his stuff. Will it play? Can he develop into that frontline starter? I mean, stuff is very similar in terms of, what Cabrera's developing. So that's another interesting point, with the injuries. Can he kind of sustain consistent success in the big leagues? But yeah, going up to the next up for the Marlins, for the Fish here, what they do moving forward. For me, next thing is Sandy Alcantara and the Joe Mack promotion. I think Sandy is next. There's been a lot of smoke with him. I think you can get maybe not as big of a haul just because of the more longevity that he has, the injury history, and some recent decline in his play, especially this last season where he really, started to pick it up late. It talked about with the Marlins farm feature, Thomas White, the number 22 prospect. He is coming along with Robbie Snelling. They've got guys that are coming up and ready to take spots in the majors as soon as next year. So, maybe if they can flip him for maybe another with a young pitcher, just some teams I was looking at, San Francisco, they're a team that is kind of in that NL middle ground that could look to, improve their roster. A team like the Houston Astros, who just got Tatsui Amai, with Framber Valdez, is he coming back? So, yeah, I think that's an option. And then at catcher, Joe Mack, there's been a lot of projections looking at the Marlins now, looking at their opening day roster. He's a guy that top prospect, bring him up. He's ready, start the youth movement, have these guys together, just like the Baltimore Orioles, have these top prospects, have these great young players, kind of start it together in that way, kind of build that foundation.
And that's the beauty of what the Marlins just did, right? It's not like they dealt one of their best rotation pieces. Oh, what are we going to do now? We just covered the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp on this channel. Feel free to look at a past episode for that. They won the AAA title on the backs of their pitching, which, by the way, shout out to Jacob for this nugget, intentionally walked more than anybody else. Yet they were up there in ERA. They were up there in hits allowed. They were up there in whip. All the metrics that matter. And they were giving up a free 90 feet literally more often than anybody else. So, Cabrera out. What's the move? Just look in the same state that you play in Jacksonville and see guys like Thomas White, like Snelling, that were beating their peers at a better rate than almost anybody else at that position. It just means those guys, they've got a sly smile on their face knowing, my permanent call-up where I've got a spot in Miami, I don't have to worry about moving around the state anymore, it might come a little sooner, assuming this team doesn't go out and try and replenish the rotation in free agency or in the trade market, which I don't know why they would, right? They've got a gold mine down there. What could also be next for the Fish, I guess just to round this out with you, Jacob, I don't think they're done getting slugging. I think this team understands, you talk about the teams that are rising in terms of their prospect pipeline, their big league production. We had discussed the A's before, especially with the DeVries acquisition and their big league club doing a little bit better, despite the fact that the whole where are they going to play baseball thing has been kind of shadowing over them for a bit. The Fish are another one. Like the Marlins have a healthy crop of individuals. And I don't think a lot of people expected to look in the NL wildcard race with 2 weeks to go last year and go, oh, if the Marlins get a little hot here down the stretch, they're in. They weren't. They were a high 70s win team. But to be in that picture, know where your deficiencies are, and immediately have those answers. Caissie can be one of them. Oh, we have a surplus of arms even after dealing Cabrera. Maybe you swing for another bat, pun intended. I think this team is in a really good spot to steal one of those wild card spots. I don't know if they're going to challenge in their division quite yet. Pretty tough, as we've talked about, with teams like the Phillies and like the Mets. But they've got plenty of opportunity to rise up there. You think what, 85, 87 wins? Can you get 8 more wins? You sure can if you're not bottom 5 in the league in home runs, bottom 15 in slugging and OPS. In doubles, you're not very far up there. In home runs, like all those different metrics in terms of just finding some type of offensive production to supplement these amazing arms. They've got that surplus of riches we always talk about on this channel. So I think brighter days are ahead for the Fish, and I think this was one of those moves that you make acknowledging that. Hey, we're close. Hey, you take our guy. Take one of our great rotation pieces. We got 5 more where that came from. Awesome stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, that's going to be our headlines, where it's mainly Cubbies and Marlins who won the trade. I think we're in agreement here short term. Cubs are in a good spot, but it all really depends on the health of Edward Cabrera. We know about the capability and that he could just be scratching the surface. We have risers, fallers, farm features to preview. The rest of the episode is going to be the Cubs and the Cardinals, and then a high A title team as we round out that end of our series. We started a few weeks ago now, in AAA, and we're going all the way down the ladder until we get to low A championship teams. Risers, I'll double up here since we have a bit of a trimmed down episode today. One is Jed Hoyer. Gets a lot of criticism, as does that Cubs front office, for being a big market team, but not always acting like it. They acted like it this week. They're using something we've seen the Dodgers utilize for a while now. Deferred payments. Backload the payment for a player like a Shohei Ohtani, where it's an egregious number until you realize the first few years you're actually not forking over that much, and you can stack up that capital over time. Chicago pulled a Dodgers with Alex Bregman. You see a 5-year, $175 million deal and go, whoa, $35 million a year. That's bold. Strong third baseman. Had a pretty good campaign again, trying to tower it over that green monster almost 20 times this year. But $70 million of that is deferred. It's on the back end of his contract. It's a big market team playing like a big market team. The second riser was checking around on the MLB pipeline executive poll. It is out. This is where executives come together and vote on things like best farm system, who's utilizing the international draft market, who's developing really well, who's got good pitchers. The Brewers were all over this thing. They were voted as the team that does the best with their international draft selections. You've got guys like Jesus Mate in there, other 16, 17-year-olds starting to fly up the rankings as we speak. You've got him in the feeder system. The Brewers were also voted as having the 4th best farm system overall. And take a deeper look, and you could even say that's a bit on the low end, but still high praise. 3rd for best use of the draft. And 5th, also think this is a little on the lower end, because I swear they have a pitching laboratory somewhere in developing pitchers. Top 5 across the board, and there were a few different other categories here too. But kind of just sticking with the NL Central theme here, Jacob. Jed Hoyer swinging the bat around a little bit in the last year before we have that salary floor and ceiling conversation. And the Milwaukee Brewers, for rightfully so, getting recognized as a team that wins in the draft, wins in the farm. And when you excel in those 2 aspects, usually it leads to some major league success.
Yeah, that's crazy. The 5th in developing pitching. Maybe that's they're looking at the minor league pitching. I know they've done a great job at kind of plucking guys major league to major league and kind of building them up. I don't know. Maybe you might have to do a little recount there. But yeah, just incredible stuff there. I'm just gonna keep it here in the NL Central, my riser is the NL Central as a whole, almost like combining your risers. Cory just kind of did a little breakdown on all of the teams: Cubs, Bregman, Cabrera, who we've talked about, capitalizing and building off of last season's momentum that the Cubs, as you probably know, Cory, have struggled to do that, especially when they've had great teams cutting costs. They're try and do more with less, and really going all in here. The Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, Sam was on his soapbox a few episodes ago, a few shows ago, and I'm right there with him. Ryan O'Hearn, Brandon Lau, Password Garcia in the trade with the Red Sox. So yeah, the Bucks are back. I really like what they've been doing with their youth, with addressing their needs with power around O'Neal Cruz, around Brian Reynolds, and that offense that they are building up. And the Cardinals get into some of their prospects a little bit later on, making a clear direction, getting players back for Sonny Gray. I think that, at least in my opinion, they should look into a few more moves before the offseason is up with some of their veterans, some of their still skill position players on the offensive end. Reds, maybe not so fast. Maybe they're on the they still got some work to do in my opinion, but of course, team in the division. Got it. If talking about the division as a whole, and the Brewers, as you touched on it, Cory, what they're doing with their development staff, I think that we might see a few more, moves on the margins at the big league level. Talked about Angel Serpa, bringing him into that bullpen, adding to the pitching lab. So, but I think again, they're another team that may not be the fanciest move, but they'll bring in a guy, on a 1 year, 2 year deal, that'll be a Danny Jansen, that'll be an Andrew Vaughn that can really be an impact bat or in the rotation for them. So that's the first riser for me, NL Central as a whole, on our NL Central episode here today. And my second one, we're going to the AL East. We're going to talk about Ernie Clement, the now second base utility, going to be superstar, in Toronto with his, charisma and taking over the country, especially in that playoff run. Recent news really putting to light that Bo Bichette is going elsewhere. I think that's been made very clear in recent days, whether it's Boston in desperation, Philadelphia is in the mix, and Ernie Clement is just going to slide right into that second base spot for the Blue Jays moving forward. Thrived in the playoffs last season, and I think he's really started his ascent, talking about Baseball Savant, 90th percentile in squared up percentage, whiff rate, and K rate. He doesn't strike out. He hits the ball hard everywhere. And it's such a luxury for Toronto when you have Bo Bichette essentially walk out the door and you have Clement, you have Okamoto, you have Jimenez. They're really right into place on that infield. And, really like the bargain of his contract. 4.6 million he's making compared to other counterparts that do similar things. Nico Horner from your Chicago Cubs, Cory, Trey Turner, Luis Ariz. I mean, Ernie Clement is doing the same things, if not better, than some of these guys, and making a lot less money for a Toronto team that is spending big. So those are my two risers.
Yeah, he's a good bargain deal, and you have all these different debates on where's Bichette going to go. Your Phillies could be a candidate for that. Clement's going, man, I don't care. I'm going to play more. Like, peace and love to you, man. I'm sure they're great locker room buddies. I'm sure they're going to talk ad nauseum afterwards, but Clement's looking for more opportunity, and when you have those advanced analytics, like 90 percentile in squared up percentage, he's not striking out a lot. He finds a way to get on base. He's got a solid glove. That's a great sign. With the Reds, it's so weird because you look up and down and you see the Cubs making waves. You see the Pirates finally addressing their bats. You see the Brewers holding on to Freddie Peralta, knowing, hey, it's 2026. Is he going to get dealt somewhere? And what would you get in terms of trade compensation for him? Do the Reds have to do a ton? I don't know. They snuck into the playoffs last year. They got decimated by the Dodgers. The Dodgers, that was the beginning of the let's flex our muscles. We don't care how we looked in the regular season tour, part 12. But I think the Reds are close. They brought in a veteran and like Gavin Lux. We had Cedric Granger on the episode last week talking about how they're pretty close. You just need guys like Hunter Green to stay healthy, Rhett Lauder stay healthy, get him in the rotation. Some similar issues to the Cubs in terms of just having health in their rotation. And then, yeah, I can't wait to talk about the Cardinals because they're an older team in the big leagues, but that crop behind Weatherholt, who we'll also talk about in a bit, they're going in the right direction. It's going to be a hyper-competitive division yet again. All right, for fallers, I will go with Kemp Alderman. He's Miami's number 11 prospect. Why am I digging into this? He's also an outfielder and was likely going to be the next guy to get called up and get some time in Miami as the future of their big league outfield. His ETA is scheduled for 2026. Not to say he won't get called up and get that opportunity. He was a 303 hitter with Jacksonville for the AAA Jumbo Shrimp. He won himself a title a couple of months ago. Then the Marlins go out and get Owen Caissie, and this is where the baseball is a business phrase comes in handy. That could delay or reduce the opportunity for Alderman at the big league level. Still a super athletic prospect for someone at his size, 6'2", 235, stocky, muscular, got all the tools. But now that's one less opportunity or one more spot taken up in the big league outfield, assuming Caissie, all but graduating out of the Cubs system, is going to take up some real estate there. So Kemp probably wasn't too thrilled to see that news, but I'm sure in terms of the long-term future, where do you see yourself in 5 years, he's very much in there based on what he brings to the table. The other faller is going to be the Boston Red Sox. You could probably guess why. Because it sucks that they essentially went the rental route, and this is something I've seen the Cubs do in the past with Alex Bregman. They got in on the sweepstakes, said, let's find out the solution to our hot corner. He started out strong, seemed like he became an immediate fan favorite. Guys, everybody was buying those Bregman jerseys from the moment that spring training started. Then the team loses Rafi Devers, and now they lose one of the best corner infielders in the game, going to a team that was looking at him and was in the race with Boston before this season anyway, except they said, we're going to hold off. We'll see what 2025 brings. And now it's more of a long-term move. Now the Cubs decided, hey, we actually didn't lose Alex Bregman to you guys because we were loading up and planning behind all of our backs, even though the speculation started to rise up the last couple of weeks, to lock Bregman down long-term through 2030. So it's not a crazy faller thing for the Red Sox. You know, one player isn't going to impact a big league ball club's success a ton. But just looking at the corner infield positions and their positional players in general, the Devers saga did not end very great. Bregman's out the door now. They're going to have to wheel and deal to try and salvage what was a playoff caliber team last year.
Yeah, I think that the whole thing with that Bregman situation is just wild with the no trade clause. I know that's come out too with the Red Sox not including that and not willing to include that. And yeah, so very interesting where they go. Again, they have the young talent. We talked about it on the farm feature as well with what they're bringing to the table. But is Marcelo Meyer going to slide into that situation? Are they going to sign someone? Are they a person to look to trade? It's very interesting. I mean, this is a team that made the playoffs and, a win away from who knows where they go in the postseason, if they win that series against the Yankees. So, yeah, and Kemp Alderman, yeah, it's interested to see, how the Marlins just talked about the trade, where they go with their outfielders. They don't have, a ton of guys in their top 10 in terms of outfield prospects. But yeah, number 11, is this a guy that, they look to, move or hold on to, can never have too many outfield, might get squeezed out, might be more of a bench guy. But, if they could flip him for a pitcher and kind of do the same thing if he ascends and takes that leap this upcoming season. My fallers, first one, going big, going networks, and going baseball on ESPN. I know there was just an agreement reached between ESPN and Major League Baseball to be the home for MLB TV and all of the games there. But saw the post for NBC. NBC Baseball is back, including opening day games, Star Spangled Banner showcase on the 4th of July. So, at the end of 2025, it was the end of Sunday night baseball. So they lose postseason games. They lose the home run derby. They are the leader for MLB TV. So MLB is diversifying. I don't blame them, but ESPN, really our childhood and growing up watching baseball has really been on Fox. It's been on ESPN. It's been MLB Network. I think those are the,
Mhm.
TNT adding into the mix pretty recently. But yeah, now it's spreading out, and I think ESPN is losing the grip there. So, and my second follower is the Detroit Tigers. I know, Cory, you have spoken a few different times about your, thoughts on them being a team that can contest the Dodgers with their prospects that are coming up, which we will definitely get into in our AL Central segments of our farm features. But the arbitration with Tarek Skubal, I mean, what are they doing here? Asked for 30 million, which I think is very in the right for the best pitcher in the sport. You can clearly make that argument. And you offered him 19 million, a $13 million difference, a record. In fact, it's we talked about the trades as well. This is going to be another push towards the door for Scooball on his way out. You get really is insulted like that. I think is you look at players, it's usually thousands of dollars that are in play, hundreds of thousands, yes, but when we're talking about baseball money, pennies in comparison to 13 million in arbitration. Just unbelievable to say the least.
Yeah, it's a tough look. I've bought a lot of Tigers stock when I see how they've succeeded. They've got a dominant ace. I knew it was the elephant in the room that they had to find a way to lock down Scooble or get a haul for him. And I still think that, could be in the cards at some point. But when you, just for reference, okay, last 2 years, his whip, amount of base runners he's given up an inning, you can hang around that 1.1, 1.2 mark. Maybe even 1.3 and you're semi-respectable. You're kind of getting into dangerous territory there. Last 2 years, he's around like 0.9. He does not allow people to get on base. He had a .891 whip last year. His ERA was down to a career best 2.21. He is solely responsible per wins above replacement for 13 victories, 6.4 and 6.5 the last couple of years. I can keep throwing all these stats at you. It doesn't matter. How do we quantify what $19 million in the form of an arbitration offer, or this is what we think you're worth, end of the deal, looks like from the Tigers? I'll go back to my home roots. If you're watching on YouTube, you see the Cubs flag behind me. What did Shota Imanaga accept this year in terms of a qualifying offer? Not even the best pitcher on the Cubs anymore, and I love Shota. He's nowhere near Tarek Skubal. Shota Imanaga's qualifying offer is $22 million. The Tigers in the same exact market, knowing that, said, hey, can we get you for 19? They didn't say that. They said, see you later. That is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't know if they were going to ever come up to 30. High 20s? Something? You can pick your favorite second best pitcher on almost any team, and they might be in that ballpark. That is crazy to me that is what they decided to tell him he's valued at. The Tigers, I have to look back at who it was. It might have been Price. They hold the record for highest agreed upon arbitration value, and they did it with another pitcher. If you give me a second, I can find it. But that is nuts to me. I don't know what you'd value Tarek Skubal at, Jacob, but it can't be anywhere near $19 million.
I think I'm with him. Yeah, you're talking. We're looking at again baseball contracts. Talking about Framber, Valdez, Rangers, Suarez. A lot of these guys that are still out there on the market. Tarek Skubal is the best pitcher in baseball. If it's him and Paul Skeens and Yamamoto, it's like 1A, 1B. He is there. It's. I think it's over 30 million a year. So I'm right there with him. Like it's 30 million. It's 30, 35. If you really, if you're, backing up the Brinks truck, but I see it. 30 to 35 million a year for him is reasonable with how he has played. That night, the wins, just for a second, the Tigers squeaked into the playoffs last year. They had a second half collapse, squeaked into the playoffs. You're talking about a 13 win margin, essentially, that he is providing. They missed the playoffs, and they're probably third in the division if he's not there. Like that's how much of a difference that he's making. And so, yeah, I'm with Tarek Skubal here.
So I found it too, and I'm with you and Tarek Skubal. We're all in the same camp here. David Price agreed to a $19.75 million one-year deal with the Tigers that set the pitcher arbitration record, where the judge got in and said, this is what David's worth. The judge will not be saying that Tarek Skubal is worth $19 million or 20 or 22 or 24 or 20. Like, he's got to be in the 30s. I would not be shocked if the judge says, hey, I like his value. Probably not going to do that. Got to meet somewhere in the middle. But he can get that in a handful of different places. Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, if they want to be psychos and just continue to build that rotation that's already looking pretty good right now. There's a lot of teams that are going to go out there and say, yeah, dude, you want $32 million? I'll actually give you 34 because I know it's better than my friends down the street are willing to pay you. So he's gone, unfortunately, for them. There's lowballing. Corbin Burns got lowballed by the Brewers. They ended up fighting over it. A few $100,000. This happens all the time. And then there's disrespecting. And the Tigers are a smart organization. The people in those positions have their positions for a reason. There's nobody in there that firmly believes Tarek Skubal is worth $19 million. So it's very unfortunate. Cory's little let me look into my crystal ball and make a YouTube short about how the Tigers are going to win the 2026 World Series just took a pretty significant hit, and we're going to have to swallow that one. But, yeah, good call. I thought about doing the Tigers for Fallers. I'm glad you did. That is an egregious gap. And Tarek could realistically go in and say I'm worth $35, $36 million. I don't think any of us are batting an eye at that either. So could have been a larger gap than $13 million.
Yeah, it's crazy. That difference just can't fathom it. And yeah, we'll see if stuff like this changes arbitration as a whole when you have a Cy Young winner that much of a difference. So yeah, we'll see.
I want to see what
how
the judge
it plays
says.
out.
This is just fun now. Like, I just want to see what the number ends up being. We'll see. It's not going to be anywhere near 19 million. That's for sure. All right, that's going to be your risers and fallers. On the other end of this short break, we'll talk farm features. That looks like the Chicago Cubs and the St. Louis Cardinals. Will round up the Brewers in the following episode as we wrap up the NL Central. But first, a quick message about where you can find us on all of our podcasting and social media platforms.
Did you miss the live version of our Minor League Weekly podcast? No worries. We've got you covered at Minor League Minute on YouTube and Minor League Weekly on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Then you can go back to watch or listen to the whole episode for all of your prospect and affiliate ball needs. So what are you waiting for? Go follow, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications to get caught up with the latest. That's Minor League Weekly on all of those platforms.
All right, there's your reminder. If you missed us in a live capacity, we podcast absolutely everything on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts as well. And if you catch us live at 7:15 p.m. on most Mondays, you can always go into the live chat and comment. Billy Taylor 701 weighing in on our question, who won the Edward Cabrera trade between the Cubs and Marlins? Trading your top prospect for an injury-prone pitcher who had a 3.50 ERA last year and who has only pitched 100-plus innings once is just plain stupid. I don't blame you for saying that. It needs to not be just one season of 100-plus innings pitched after this season. Otherwise, it looks real rough, doesn't it? Caissie's got a lot of potential. Jacob and I were talking earlier here, Billy, if you're still on the channel, that short term, if Cabrera fills out that need for a pretty injury-prone rotation right now, albeit he is also injury-prone, the Cubs could be the ones benefiting here, but Caissie's the future, man. They've got a spot for him in the outfield right now. And again, those other prospects, if they turn out, great. If they don't, and Caissie's all you get, there's still a realistic opportunity for the Marlins to win that. And I don't think that's delusional to say, right? So we'll see. But Cabrera's got to stay healthy. I fully agree with you. I'm actually good with a 3.5 ERA if he pitches 150 innings. If he pitches 50, yeah, we lost by a landslide. I agree with you there. All right, we're going to get on to our farm features here. We have gone through both Easts, the NL East and the AL East. We are on to the NL Central. The AL Central's coming up, featuring the Tigers, who we just talked about in our Fallers segment, thanks to the arbitration amount that they offered up for Tarek Skubal at $19 million. Got the White Sox in there. You got some interesting pieces for a division that feels pretty wide open going into 2026. All right, for our farm features today, though, We begin with the Chicago Cubs and look at their prospect pipeline. I'll take the reins on this. We'll go top 5, beginning with new number 1 prospect, Moises Ballesteros. Brought up as a catcher. We'll see if that remains. More on that in a moment. Did debut last year and did pretty well. He is one of the most pure sluggers this Cubs farm system has right now, especially with Owen Caissie no longer being in the room. The elephant in the room is, and was last year, the catching position played and hit a little bit better than I think this program thought they were going to. Carson Kelly, the summer of Carson Kelly almost earned him an all-star nod that nobody was expecting on the other end of 30. And Miguel Amaya progressed, I think, where this organization wanted him to. Laid off some more of the spoiler pitches, was able to really take on a leadership position in that backstop spot. But Carson Kelly, I don't think anybody saw coming. Now, back into the picture with Moises. With Owen Caissie gone, if we see more of Seiya Suzuki, played a lot of DH in right field, well, now that DH spot is freed up. And that might have Moises' name right on it, which solves your catcher surplus issue. Ballesteros hit 298 over 57 at-bats with the Cubs last year, so a relatively small sample size. Just 12 strikeouts to 9 walks, and he actually fared better early on. Again, not much to work with here. Then Owen Caissie looked a lot more comfortable. Made some big-time hits with the Cubs, who were in a race for the NL Central title and eventually the NL wildcard spot that they did end up getting. If Chicago's in a spot where Moises is a catcher in a couple of years, I'm curious to see what happens because they've got his arm at a 50 grade, 40 grade fielding, has some trouble with blocking, being elusive back there too. Or do they go another direction with a backstop? We've actually seen this before, Jacob, with one of your guys now. Kyle Schwarber was brought up as a catcher in the minor leagues, and that never saw the light of day because they just had other guys in those spots at that point.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see with Ballesteros, a few guys on the Cardinals, who I'll get to in just a little bit, who their offense is there. The defense is the next biggest question. So I'm sure he'll get reps, maybe like a fifth day, maybe a Sunday game, mix up the lineup a little bit to give him that opportunity. So yeah, I'm very, very interested to see how they work with him, how, again, with the Cubs team that made the playoffs, they're kind of in that blend of bringing in the young talent, but also supplementing it with these kind of proven veterans with the Bregman signing. So where he's going to be in the lineup, who's protecting him, how he's going to continue that adjustment. Teams have now seen him on tape at the big league level. They're going to be throwing him some different things. Where's that next, the almost cliche now, the adjustment to the adjustment. What is he going to do with that? So intrigued with that. And also, yeah, the defense. He can't DH every single day, maybe unless you're Shohei and Kyle Schwarber. So maybe if they can get him in at first, maybe some reps over there to get Michael Busch off of his feet, or catcher, if they can, again, continue to develop, Amaya or Kelly a day off as well. So yeah, intrigued with Ballesteros.
Yeah, the bat is really good. There are questions looming on where they're going to put him. My guess would be short-term DH spot, but there's still some other bats. All right, number 2 is Jackson Wiggins, right-handed pitcher, 2026. With Edward Cabrera coming over, that ETA might get pushed back a few weeks or a couple months. This man has the best, most polished fastball in the Cubs pipeline right now. I don't think it's particularly close since the graduation of Cade Horton. His trajectory did just change, though. Any thoughts, again, of him cracking the big league rotation early are going to be put to the side. But that doesn't take away from the fact this guy throws high 90s from an intimidating 6'6" frame. The walk issues he had in college are getting better. Not great yet. He walked the same amount of batters, though, in 2025 that he did in 2024, except in 2025 he had 20 more innings behind it. So the walks per nine is going down. Opponents are hitting 176 against Jackson Wiggins across 2 years of pro baseball work. The slider's really developed into that solid secondary option, can be that weapon out pitch for him. He tunnels really well, disguises everything. I think Wiggins will be hanging out in AAA Iowa a little bit longer before we see him this year, but that's not the worst thing in the world. I think the Cubs would rather have him work on everything, make sure he's good before they call him up, because, I mean, Jacob, I'm going through 3, 4, and 5. I could go all the way down to 10, 15, 20, more on that in a moment. There's not a whole lot of ready-made pitching prospects right now, so make sure you get Jackson Wiggins right before that arbitration clock starts ticking. It doesn't need to, and it probably won't this year because, again, Cabrera is now filling into a rotation that's going to get Steele back, Justin Steele, by the middle of the season as well. Number 3 is Jefferson Rojas, shortstop / second baseman, ETA 2027. With the outfield being freed up a bit thanks to the Cabrera trade that sent Owen Caissie to Florida, I would now argue the middle infield is the most blocked, with guys like Jefferson Rojas and even James Triantos filling out that slot. You got Nico and Dansby Swanson up the middle. They're going to be there a while. We'll see with Nico. Dansby's tied down for a little longer. Rojas came in with one of the best pitch ID skills of anybody in his signing class back in 2022. He walked well over 10% of the time this past year, hit 278 with a 379 on-base percentage in High A South Bend. But the Double-A learning curve hit him a little hard. He hit just 164 across 39 games, but kept that walk rate way up. So his OBP was actually still near the 300 mark. 150 pounds, so the run tool is going to be important. Right now, it's just a 60 grade. I want to see if he works on his speed, packs some muscle onto that 5'11 frame. Still plenty of time. He was 16 years old out of the international market. That is still like crazy when I hear headlines like that. Ethan Salas, Jesus Mate. Now you get a Jefferson Rojas in there. Maybe not as well-known of a name, but still someone who was told, hey, kid, you're playing pro ball, and you are hardly allowed to drive in this country. So pretty crazy to think about. This is his 5th season of pro ball, yet he's just 21 years old at the time we're recording this. So not a lot of life experience, plenty of baseball experience. By the time he's 25 years old, he'll be having his 10th season, wherever he ends up being. So good place to be in. This guy I'm going to get your thoughts on, Jacob, because I think he's the happiest of anybody in the pipeline right now. Kevin Alcantara, outfielder, debuted last year. Actually debuted in 2024 too. A little bit more last year. I'm sure him and Owen Caissie are great buds, cordial, great teammates when they cross paths. Kevin Alcantara is the happiest individual across the Cubs organization right now upon hearing that Owen Caissie's on his way out. Because I don't think anybody could have let out a bigger sigh of relief knowing that situation in right field. When Caissie was there, it was, is it going to be Owen Caissie in the future? What's going to happen with Seiya Suzuki? The Cubs were putting him out there occasionally. Well, we also have the possibility of this team going out and having a Cody Bellinger reunion. You have Ethan Conrad, your first-round pick. He'll be up in a couple of years, you assume, in the outfield. Maybe if Ian Happ doesn't get extended, he goes in left. Where is Alcantara going to go? Well, now we kind of know that he has a better shot at right field. Great glove, uses that wiry frame to his advantage and can do damage at the plate. He's nicknamed the Jaguar, sneakily one of the best big league nicknames, I think, right now. Went 4 for 11 this last year. He's 6'6". He's got the tools. He's got the range in the outfield. Doesn't steal a ton, but had an 806 OPS. The problem, that strikeout rate's hanging out in 30% range. Not good. So I'll just pitch it to you here. I think this guy let out a pretty big sigh of relief a couple of days ago when he saw the details of that Edward Cabrera, Owen Caissie deal.
Yeah, look at the duos. We got Bo Bichette, Ernie Clement. We've
Yep.
got Owen Caissie, and we've got Kevin Alcantara here on this episode. Yeah, the strikeouts that's not going to fly, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing for him. I wonder if there's a situation where it's a center right field split. I mean, we know it's so much across the league. You really want pop. You really want great production, from that bat from the corner outfield spot. Sometimes, you look at Juan Soto. Sometimes it doesn't even really have to be average fielding when you get that kind of great production out there. So, yeah, I think he has those intangibles. He's another guy that has been around. There's been up and down in those prospect rankings. He's been around the block. So it's time, I think, for him to take that step. Want to see how he does in spring training. I'm sure the Cubs will give him a lot of opportunities, at the top of those lineups, at top of those, double squads that they'll play to really cement himself to be a guy that, that opening day roster comes around. We're looking at Kevin Alcantara. So yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with him. You mentioned Seiya in right, not exactly the greatest range out there there for him. Of course, you got PCA and center field roaming around, so we'll see how that is. But yeah, interested to see Kevin Alcantara. Like I said, he's a guy that I've seen looking at prospect rankings over the past 2-3 years, and he's right there. There've been discussions with the Cubs what they're going to do with him. The path is clear. He's got to take it.
It looks a lot better than it did a few weeks ago, or even a few days ago now, too. Because if you were to ask me, like, Cory, what does the future of this outfield look like before that deal? I would have said Hap if they extend him in left, PCA in center, Caissie, Seiya, platooned in right. Probably more Caissie because I think he's a better defender. But yeah, and this next guy, number 5 in the Cubs system, is Ethan Conrad. He's in that 5-year plan. Outfielder, ETA 2028. This is the Cubs' first-round pick this year at 17th overall. Led all of college baseball with 13 triples and had a .389 batting average at Marist in 2024. Took his talents to one of the best baseball programs in the country in Wake Forest in 2025. Didn't get to see a whole lot of action. Injured his throwing shoulder in March. Was shut down for the year. The swing is simple. It's compact. He's got a knack for timing up pitchers and being an opportunistic but plus speed runner. Got a little speed to him on the base paths. You look at the future of the Cubs outfield, like 2 to 3 years in advance. Here's what I see with Seiya's contract ending soon. If you say, Cory, 2029, what's the opening day roster look like? I think Conrad could be in left if Hap doesn't hang around. PCA is there in center forever as long as they can get a deal done. And then in right field, maybe it is an Alcantara. Maybe it is a Seiya if he hangs around. But again, his contract's coming to an end. But I'm pretty sure Ethan Conrad is somewhere in the picture. It's not a matter of if, it's just where they throw him. Diamond in the rough, this could be an issue. It's not one now. Grant Kipp is not the issue. He's the diamond in the rough. I'll bring up the issue shortly after. He's 17th in the prospect pipeline, right-handed pitcher. ETA is 2026. He is a seasoned veteran at the minor league level. That's the good news. He has only made it up to Double-A Knoxville at this point, but his ETA is 2026. That's happened before. Guys will go into Triple-A for a cup of coffee. He registered his largest innings output of 108 last year. Okay, this is kind of adding up. Here's the kicker. He's 17th in the system. There are 3 pitchers above him in the Cubs prospect pipeline top prospects list. One is Jackson Wiggins, who we talked about. Brandon Birdsell is another. He's out for all of 2026 with an injury. Okay, so now Grant Kipp, who has not pitched a single inning in AAA, is up to the 3rd best pitching prospect. Dominic Reed's above him. He hasn't played pro ball yet. He's going to make his pro debut next year. He's 16th. All right, so now if we want to go through the little filter marker on the website, I would like guys who are healthy this year, and I would like guys who are playing pro ball. It's Jackson Wiggins and then Grant Kipp. I hope Grant Kipp is good. The point I'm trying to make here, and I'll go strengths and weaknesses by starting with the weakness, the Cubs don't have a whole lot of prospect pipeline pitching depth. It is Jackson Wiggins, a large drop-off, and then right now it's Grant Kipp. So I alluded to it before. The big league club is going to need to hold it down in the rotation and in the bullpen for a bit. I do think it's part of the reason they address those needs in other capacities. Obviously, you had Keller out the door. You had Pomeranz out the door. Oh, we're getting really thin now. They go out and get Cabrera in the rotation, Hunter Harvey, Jacob Webb, and others into the bullpen. So they're addressing it at the macro level. You get down into the pipeline, you start going, oh, I hope we make a trade soon or our pitchers get a lot better. Because after Jackson Wiggins, there is a drop-off. Good news, pipeline's got sluggers. Moises, Alcantara, Conrad, they're going to bring the power. We still have to see Conrad debut, but that's in his profile. Jefferson Rojas offsets it. He's more of a hit tool first type of guy, going to smack a double down the line, maybe try and stretch the extra 90 feet. But that is what we have for the Cubs here. You could probably sense it in my voice. Pitching depth, not an issue now. Very well could be like May 1st. If a couple guys drop and you got to call someone up who hasn't been to Iowa yet, going to have to get to Iowa pretty soon and learn how to pitch at a big league level. So there are some issues bubbling there, but top end, it's a fun time so far.
Yeah, very interested to see, again, talking about Caissie, maybe not the Owen Caissie level, but if you're looking at a guy like Alcantara who doesn't play very well in spring training or isn't where the Cubs want him to be, if he's another guy, especially with Conrad, waiting in the wings, if he's a guy that they view as, hey, we've given you chances. We've given you some years here. It's time to upgrade either the major league ready or even a prospect where you can swap him for an arm that's kind of ready, or in AAA that's ready to kind of come up and be a reserve guy, long season, ready to go. Talking about the better organization on this
Mm.
side, Corey, as William Contreras likes to say, a Cub to a Cardinal. We're going to the St. Louis Cardinals as we trek around. I love the rivalries too. That's another thing. Before I love that we're doing these rivalry where we're doing the rivals in
Good
the
point.
farm features back to back. And starting off with number one for the Cardinals is JJ Weatherhall, infielder, second, short, third, ETA 2026. Right now, he's MLB's number 5 prospect. And, you can really make the argument with him, McGonigal, with Griffin. For me, I think he's the most MLB ready out of those guys. I know a few of them with DeVries, they're a little bit ways away. Weatherholt, I think, is right there. He is a guy that, you call up, I think, for opening day. You don't blink an eye with what he can bring to the table. A few weeks ago, we talked about fantastic all-around player as one of the risers, at least a 50 grade tool in every skill set with a high of a 65 grade hit tool leading the way. Just to take a look inside the numbers last year for Weatherholt, who played games for AA Springfield and AAA Memphis. 42 games for Memphis, AAA Memphis, 57 games for Springfield. For Memphis, AAA, he just batted 314, 416 OBP, 562 slugging. Springfield, which is kind of interesting, double A was a little bit of a step down. 300, 425, 466. He had 10 homers in triple A, 7 homers in double A. So he got better at a higher level of competition with guys that are knocking on the doorstep. The offense is legit. And again, that 65 hit tool, sometimes it feels like it doesn't do it justice with his control of the zone, with his contact. He sprays the ball all over the field. A guy that I'm looking at, a guy that I was thinking of, doing the research is Corey Seager, a lofty comp. But when I look at a guy that has a versatile bat, plays shortstop, I think that's where the hope might stick down the line. But again, a guy that can play second, third, short, that versatility that the Cardinals love and have loved out of guys at the big league level. I mean, almost an even K to walk rate, which is just so impressive. Looking and looking at the numbers from Seager when he was coming up with the Dodgers to Weatherholt, similar stuff in that regard. Biggest thing for him defensively. Talked about it in a recent MLB.com article. He taught in quotes. He said, "I think it's going to come down to defensively, being able to put in a position that might be challenging for me, but one that the team can trust, and I can perform there and stay there a while." So he even acknowledges it. Such a veteran savvy like quote from a guy that has yet to play in the majors yet. So a lot of discussion with Brendan Donovan with the Cardinals. I think he's a little bit blocking Weatherholt right now because you got Mason Wynn, Arenado as well. We'll see. But again, lefty utility guy. Lefty utility guy. They kind of do a little bit of the same things. So I think if they move him this off season, really opens up the path for Weatherholt. At least maybe not opening day with service time manipulation, but getting him up right away. Number 2 is Liam Doyle, left-handed pitcher, the recent draft pick number 5 for the Cardinals, MLB number 36 in the top 100, 15.4 strikeouts per 9. I'll start there.
Oh
He
my
was the
gosh.
SEC pitcher of the
Jeez.
year. Yeah, he was striking guys out like nobody's business. An electric fastball graded at 75. And it looks, we've talked so much about Scooble. We've talked about Garrett Crochet. It's that motion and that fastball. Looking at the video, it rides just like it. High in the zone. Guys aren't catching up to it. Has strikeout stuff. The windup very similar to Alex Vesia, where he keeps the ball high. He really keeps it in the glove for a very long time, so hitters can't see it. As that high motion comes down and through the mound very well. Again, Ks per nine, ERA as well. Really built up a resume. For the Cardinals, smart thing, in my opinion, they got him going right away. He finished the year in double A. He started in single A. He pitched one game. He went up to double A. They're not messing around. I'll get to their a little bit of a weakness, similar to what you brought up, Cory, with their pitching. So, but they're getting him ready and getting him in the bigs. Gonna have to build up. Just 5 innings across high A and double A. So interested to see how he does in a full season. So I think sometimes, in college, he had those games where he gave up 5, 6 runs. He was out of there in 3 1/3. So it's going to be about the workload, building it up, and also efficiency, limiting the pitch count, working on the ground ball stuff, working on the fly ball stuff. Can't rely on the strikeout at the major league level all the time. So I think that's going to be the next big things for him. Now we get into the backstops. Fun stuff here. Get into some catchers. First off, the number 3 prospect, Rainier Rodriguez, ETA 2028 catcher, top catching prospect in the Cardinals system. An absolute masher from the catcher position. The power is there. 60 grade power from the backstop position. 20 homers across 3 levels, and that's when he hit 0 in double A, where he finished with Peoria. So he's with high A Peoria, excuse me. So he's going to mash the baseball. Low hips, great bat placement, goes through the zone very quickly, and excellent plate discipline. The catcher using the eyes from behind the plate to the stick. 54 walks to 65 strikeouts. Only 19 years old. We talk about younger guys making an impact. He's got a lot of years ahead of him. 50 grade hit tool, 60 grade power from the backstop. So a gold standard is there for the Cardinals with Yadier Molina, the long-time great, and one of the greatest, catchers we've seen in the last 20 years. And, Rodriguez still got to work on the defense. Final stats, he upped his line drive percentage over 44% line drives, which is huge for him. 276 average, 399 OBP, 20 homers, 63 RBIs, 555 slugging from the catcher position. The errors, got to cut those down. He's another guy like Ballesteros, who is he going to be a DH? Is he going to be a catcher? Have some time to build him out. He's still in high A. Next guy on the list, Leonardo Bernal. He's a little bit closer. The ETA is 2026. Cardinals got a crowded catching room with Ivan Herrera, with Pozo in there. So they've got some guys that are at the big league level. Jimmy Crooks, who just graduated, is going to graduate from prospect status. He was a 2024 Texas League MVP. Here's Bernal, switch hitting catcher, brings versatility with great discipline as well. That his defense is off the chart, ladies and gentlemen. Caught over 747 innings behind the plate, only 10 errors, and he won a Gold Glove last year in minor league baseball. They only give him out to 9 guys, and he won one of them for his defensive prowess and caught out would-be base stealers at a 39% clip. It would have been 4th in Major League Baseball if you bring it up to the big league game, behind only ahead of guys like Patrick Bailey, Dylan Dingler, JT Realmuto. So some guys that really pride themselves on their defense. And he held pitchers. He was great with Springfield. ERA was 3.34. He was behind the dish leading the charge. So bat is still a work in progress, but like what I'm seeing, I think he's more all around ready than Rodriguez is, who still has to work on the defense. So, but again, they've got a handful of guys already there. So we'll see if there's a situation when they look to move him around to first, to DH, what they do with him, with that William Contreras going out? Is he another guy that they switch? First DH catcher as well. And number 5 for the Cardinals is Quinn Matthews, left-handed pitcher, ETA 2026, a fourth-round selection in 2023. Finished with over 200 strikeouts, just a few years removed from that. Strikeout machine with a 4-pitch mix, changeup, the great equalizer, very deceptive, but has struggled with his fastball. The struggles have come really with his command, with his fastball command. He started 22 games last season at AAA with Memphis, 3.93 ERA. The walks went up and the Ks went down. His last 4 starts, he had 17 walks in just 19 and a third innings pitched. So that's got to be the biggest thing that he cleans up, especially when he doesn't have a extremely lively fastball. So, it's really been the breaking stuff that has been his bread and butter. The fastball is still catching up. So it could be decision time for him in 2026. Diamond in the rough, I mean, very almost mirror image to you, Cory, in terms of a right-handed pitcher that's been in the system for a while. I'm going with Tink Hess, the Cardinals' number 14 prospect, was as high as number 2 in 2024 and number 4 in 2023. So he's been up there at the top of the system, but hadn't only pitched in 8 games last season. Versatility is huge in what he can provide for this Cardinals staff, and he has really been a starter. But Heim Bloom recently talking about his impact. It could be in the bullpen because he has an incredible circle change. 70 grade pitch. The pitch had a 73% overall whiff rate and a 63% whiff in zone rate in 2024. This is an excellent pitch that just dives off the table, lives in the low 80s, mid 80s as well. So again, conversations about him moving to the bullpen. I think, you start him in AAA, you see, I'd say put him in that role right away, get him working there because the Cardinals still, figuring out their bullpen. That was one of their issues this past season. So 2024, he had a breakout, 2.71 ERA, 20 starts, 109 Ks for AA Springfield. Last season, only 8 starts, 2.95 ERA, injuries the whole season. So very intrigued to see what they do with him. Again, he could be up as early as next season for the Cardinals. Strengths, power from the plate. Talked about Rodriguez. Didn't even talk about Joshua Baez, who Sam brought up a few weeks ago when we were talking about NL Central guys and risers. Jesus Baez, the brother Baez bashers up the middle. So they need it, especially with Arenado, Goldschmidt already out the door. This power, this wave of power is going to come up, and the Cardinals are going to need it, especially with all the guys, especially like Weatherholt, who have great hit tool, get on base, win, great hit tool. Jordan Walker already at the big league level. How was their infield talent as well? Talked about Weatherholt, Padilla as well, their number 11 prospect, Baez, all have an ETA of 2029 or sooner, with 2 of them scheduled in the next 2 years with Padilla and Weatherholt. So pretty scary stuff. Talking about a team that has good infield depth. What are they going to do with it? We'll see with that. Weaknesses, right-handed arms specifically. Doyles and Matthews are there. Hence and Friardo, who we've discussed previously with the trade with William Contreras. Looking at the big league level, Liberatore is there. They traded for Richard Fitz in that Contreras trade as well. But these great Cardinals teams, they have had depth from the right side. They've had greats like Wainwright and Flaherty, but when you have a Miles Michaelis, when you have a Michael Walker, when you have guys that are in the ready to come up, that's huge. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at, relief arms. They've got a lot of guys who have started in the minors. So yeah, I think for the Cardinals, they have some great talent, especially behind the plate, where they're going to have to make some decisions of, are they going to keep, with Ivan Herrera, who's been discussed in some trade conversations, because they've got 2 guys in the top 5, 3 in the top 10 if you count Crooks, who has barely played in the big leagues, behind the plate for a team that had Yadier Molina behind the backstop for so many years.
I gotta think someone's getting dealt. I don't know who yet. Great job, by the way. Awesome in-depth stuff on this franchise. They've got some flashy names. Liam Doyle's getting the Paul Skeens treatment. I had to look up how much Skeens was used in the lower levels. An inning in rookie ball, 3 innings in low A, 2 2/3 innings in double A. I know that ETA says 2027, but depending on what the pitching department looks like for the Cardinals, don't be shocked if you see Doyle up in like June, July, August, postseason expanded roster. Maybe that's when he cracks in. Rodriguez and Bernal. Varying skill sets. Rodriguez has the great bat, still working on his defense. Bernal's literally the opposite. He brings the switch hitting element like you brought up. But in terms of catching guys trying to steal, he's up there with the best of them already, especially if those numbers can translate to the big leagues. We said this at the beginning. The Cardinals are an older team, especially when you look around their infield. Where's Donovan going to go, if anywhere? We know about the Arenado move. They made moves for Goldschmidt before. This is a team that is craving young, ripe talent, but ripe teams, players that are ready. They've got a few in there. I'm genuinely just going to keep an eye on Liam Doyle because I want to see if he can break Skeens. It's probably not a record, but break Skeens' mark where he threw 34 innings in minor league ball. That is someone, when you have a 15.4 K per 9 as an SEC arm, I don't think the Cardinals have any question about whether or not he's going to be able to pitch in a major league game. I think it's now, hey, we know you got a powerful arm, 75 grade fastballs nuts. We want as many innings out of you in the big leagues as possible. Why use them up for 150 innings in the minor leagues when you can use them for 50 and you get the other 100 in the majors? That's a very aggressive mindset, but it's one you use for somebody. I literally thought that was a typo until you read it. That has 15.5 K per 9. Like, that is unreal stuff. And then you factor in the level of comp he's playing. So, awesome job. I'm going to be watching a lot of Liam Doyle tape this year. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, excited for that was crazy looking at that as well. Like that's nuts. And the swagger too on the mound. Like seeing some of the stuff we talked about with Gage Wood when we were doing the Phillies, but that kind of, moxie, does a little circle around the mound after he gets a strikeout, a little strutting the stuff. That's what especially a team like the Cardinals, need that injection of not only, the power, but the swagger back for a team that, again, with the Brewers, it kind of taken over that kind of control in terms of the Cardinals had that control for a while there. So, bringing in a guy that has that kind of swagger, that's going to bring it, that knows he's great and is going to bring it that he's great is important for this team moving forward.
Yeah, it took the words right out of my mouth. Like, he knows he's good. He knows he's great. And you're going to have him fooling a lot of NL Central bats and then strutting around. And the guys who get struck out are going to go, who does he think he is? Like, I've never faced him before. And those are the mind games you got to play when you're in a very competitive division. So, remarkable job there. We had brought up the Tigers in one capacity before because of their arbitration pitch or lack thereof for Tarek Skubal. Now we go to their high A team. You want to look up and down and ask, hey guys, who was the best team in minor league baseball regardless of level this year? I think I put my ticket in the West Michigan Whitecaps box. They are loaded. You not only look at the names they had, but here's a little recap of their season. Again, this is a continuation of our title team series that's going to be sadly coming to an end soon as we're going to low A starting next week. So 2 more episodes and we should be through that. But the West Michigan Whitecaps, we talk all the time about how continuity is really, really tough in the minors, right? Someone gets too good, they're gone. Turnover did not hurt this baseball team. Franchise best 92 wins. They set that mark pretty early on, all things considered. Winners of the first and second half titles, so you only need to win one of those to get to the postseason. They just did it for fun 2 times. Eventually swept the Cedar Rapids Colonels in the finals. 7th title for this team as they claimed the 2025 Midwest League Championship. I mean, we probably have similar feeds, Jacob. This team was flying all over my timeline. First half title, they did it again. They hit 90. Then they broke the record and hit 92. Then they won it all. I felt like I was a Tigers fan for a few weeks there because anytime I saw anything minor league related, it was, we'll talk about some of these names, McGonigal, Clark, these dudes winning a lot of baseball games in the summer of 2025.
Yeah, look at me here. I might be put in minor league weekly jail talking about the Tigers as a faller and now waxing poetic about their high A squad with the Whitecaps. But yeah, we'll get to those studs in just a second. But just even a further breakdown to just show how dominant this team was. 760 runs. First, no other team had more than 661. So scored over 100 runs, nearly 100 runs more than the next closest team in the Midwest League. 127 home runs. No other team had over 110. So that's 17 more long balls, 713 RBIs. No other team had more than 600, let alone 700. Their pitching could have been middle of the pack, and they still probably would have won at least, 80 games in total. But not so fast. Their pitching was a Midwest League best 3.75 ERA. They allowed the second fewest hits and second in total shutouts as a unit. So I mean, just when you combine all of that, the offense and the pitching, defense as well, just a minor league squad that you know some teams pale in comparison to how dominant that they were. Just incredible stuff, and kind of piggybacking off of what Cedric mentioned, last episode with the culture that
Hmm.
is brought in when you have prospects, especially with the Tigers, top prospects that are on similar timelines where they're cycling through, and to keep that consistency. These guys played 30 games, 25, 30 games if max here, and to continue that, through the rest of the season into the second half when no production dipped, where some of these teams struggle, and it's, sometimes the second half is different than the first with what they can do on the field with the players that they have. But that culture there with the Whitecaps, incredible.
And that's a phenomenal point. I'm glad that you brought it up, and I'm glad that Cedric brought it up last week. The life of a minor league manager is something, man. Like, you hear all the time the complaints about smaller market teams like the Pirates or the Marlins, the Rays, what have you, where if someone gets too good, arbitration starts knocking on the door. Even the Tigers with Tarek Skubal, I'm sure if money was no object, they wouldn't have thrown $19 million on the table. The point I'm trying to get at is smaller market teams almost get that sly worry of, is he going to be too good for us? Well, if you're a minor league manager, they will 100% get too good for you. When a player pops off, they get called up. Like, that's a guarantee. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If someone gets good enough to be levels above their competition, they're advancing. And this is a high A baseball team. So you're going to have people flying through. You're part of the pipeline. So how do you maintain it? How do you win the first half, have guys like Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal leave, and stay good? I'm kind of taking a page out of Cedric's book too. He gave credit to the managers. He also gave credit to those guys who aren't the top-end names, who spend a few weekends there and then they're done. Guys who are going to advance, and this guy did, but they spend the majority of the season there, and they're really the glue of that clubhouse. Josh Peck, the shortstop, had 115 hits across 93 games, gave them continuity at that ever so important shortstop position, hit 307, and then stole 17 bags in 22 attempts. He's now up in Double-A Erie, but he spent his 2025 in West Michigan, and damn it, did he make the most of it. He looked really, really good, and for those other top names that aren't there a whole lot, but are that flash in the pan that a team needs when they're in a race, it's the Josh Pecks of the world that really shoulder the load, welcome new guys on. Hey, here's where the clubhouse is. There's the bathroom. This is the good food spot. Here's the rosin. There's where you're going to go practice. And, oh, yeah, they hit 307 in the process, too, if you're lucky enough to have a Josh Peck in your life. So I'll give a little shout-out to him. Congrats to him and congrats to this team.
Well, Cory, I'm gonna give some love to the top prospect.
Yeah,
We
you have
can't
to.
we can't
You have
go
to.
this segment. We have to. We have to. I'll touch the first guy I'll touch on is someone I mentioned in the prospects video, the trade deadline prospects video, Jose Buisenio, a guy that the Tigers, if they really wanted to go all in, a guy that could be on the market, with West Michigan to start the season, hit to a tune of 296, 1,024 OPS, had 58 hits in 55 games, like Peck, he was also quickly promoted by the end, after that 55 game threshold. Max Clark, number 2 in the system, 285. 430, 427 slash line with 74 hits in 68 games. Ranged, played excellent. Oh, Kevin McGonigal, ho-hum. He batted 372, which lifted up his season numbers, by the way. He struggled a little bit towards the end of the season in Double-A after the promotion. So, 372, that's going to lift your numbers. Finish the season in at least this area. There's Whitecaps had 19 doubles, 54 hits. And let's not forget that Bryce Rayner, the 4th best prospect, he should be there. He's coming back from an injury, played with Lakeland to start, so he might be a quick visit to the Whitecaps as well next season. So don't know if they're slowing down in terms of the top prospect department either this upcoming season.
Banana Lands, man, that's all I have to say. We've talked about different title teams where they have strong pitching, but they had to win in spite of their hitting, vice versa, strong hitting, but they had to win in spite of not great pitching. And when you have the best of both worlds, you get the West Michigan Whitecaps. You get top-end names, you get season-long mainstays, you get electric ERAs, K/9 rates, home runs, RBI totals 100 above the rest of the pack. This was a really fun team to watch, and it's one to cherish because the nature of minor league baseball is as soon as it gets too good, it's gone. I don't know when we're going to see another team that does this well at any level. So that was a cool ride to be on. I know Nathan, their broadcaster, decently well. He had a ton of fun. He felt like he was spoiled rich. Every time they'd lose a good prospect, they'd go on another 5-game win streak. So Tigers got it figured out in the minors. We will see what happens with Tarek Skubal. I will tie it back to that. I'll give you the pass. You're allowed to, absolutely glaze one of the best minor league baseball teams in history while also saying, hey, I think Scoob's worth more than $20 million a year. So no razzing to be had there. Great stuff. Fun episode today.
Yeah, great episode, and we'll continue. We've got the Brewers, we got Sam's squad still to touch here in the NL Central, but can't wait to go to the AL Central too, like you were talking about earlier. The White Sox, the Tigers, the Twins with the guys that they have. Can't wait to dive into that as well. Traveling around Major League Baseball for the prospects as well, tracking these guys, seeing where they'll end up and where they will be in 2026 as the season starts.
Yeah, 14 down, 16 to go, almost halfway home. This Farm Features series will wrap up just about at the beginning of the regular season. We'll be a little bit into spring training, I think, by the time that spring training should just be getting started if we're on schedule by the time that we are wrapping up the Farm Features. But there you have it for episode number 6. Make sure you follow us on all the great platforms. We're talking Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. Of course, on YouTube, we are Minor League Weekly on the Minor League Minute YouTube channel. You can listen back to all of our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Have a great week, everybody. Every story starts somewhere, and in baseball, that somewhere is the minors. The breakout stars.
Early on in day 3 of the draft, the Pirates called.
The wild moments and the prospects you need to know about.
A sub-3 ERA in both single and Double-A.
This is Minor League Weekly, your inside look at the future of the game.